Hello everyone, Jul here. I know some of you might get confused and say things like, "Whoa, seriously? You make an actual review now?" Well, let's just say I want to try some new stuff, and if you guys happen to like it, well, I guess it's time to be a full-time game reviewer in the future. Recently, I've been so hooked with this new turn-based RPG called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. There are lots of things that I want to talk about this game, and I will say it is an extremely great addition to the genre, as it answers a lot of problems that we had with turn-based RPGs or JRPGs in a very long time. So without further ado, let's get started.
I thought I was used to losing people.
One of the most important parts about the game in my opinion, especially in RPGs, is how they going to hook you in the first 1 to 2 hours of your playthrough, and Clair Obscur definitely nailed this part. If you are one of those people that hate when games suddenly give you so many things to think about in the earlier section of the game, or how JRPGs lately are too slow on their story, well, I have good news for you. I'll say the first 5 hours on this game feels unusually relaxed but also intense at the same time. The whole game feels very opera with so many orchestra music and the way they oftenly show the cutscenes in dramatically cinematic way. The introduction story about how each year passing by means you will lose so many people, including your loved ones, sets a pretty good background to make you care about their struggle. While I admit the way they send expedition squads to venture to unknown and face various challenges kind of reminds you of Attack on Titan a little bit, but it's not a straight copy-paste. I also love the voice acting in this game, like the way they act, they talk, joking around or anything feels really natural, and it seems like the developer really care about their script and doesn't insult your intelligence like you are a 10 years old kid or something. The prologue is short yet impactful. You will immediately understand what's going on, while it pushes you gradually to the heat of the conflict, especially after that cutscene on the beach, like holy shit. I guess it's time to say goodbye to your girlfriend because now we are on business. Now let's talk about the gameplay. When I first saw the way that Trails Through Daybreak or Metaphora Fantasio innovated turn-based genre and kind of implemented action combat into its design, I thought this is gonna be the new norms on our modern turn-based RPGs, and I have never been so happy that I'm wrong. Because I don't know how they do it, but this combat design is so freaking good. It feels fresh, it feels intense, and it feels like you actually care with each combat, whether you're fighting some minion weirdos or an actual boss. When you're using skills, you will have some button prompts that will increase the potency of its effects. And honestly, this is a great addition as it makes you engage with each action that you choose. And not to mention, you can also utilize aim mechanic as you use this to exploit weak points or to hit flying monsters. And later on, you will also get gradient attack, which is basically another form of combat skills that can be used after filling up your gradient charge. The complexity of each character also helps making the combat feels unique and dynamic. I'm not gonna go into details on how each character plays, but let's just say each character has their own mechanics that you can exploit and you can experiment to build good synergies within your team. The combat is centered on the AP system, which is basically your resources to execute skills. So when your AP reaches 0, you cannot use any skills. However, you're still allowed to perform basic attacks. Now here's the unique part. In the enemy's turn, you are allowed to perform defensive maneuvers to mitigate damage, like parry, dodge, jump, and gradient counter. Mastering these mechanics are mandatory, unless you want to be labeled as gaming journalist and probably crying in the most part of the game. That being said, even though these mechanics are cool, I think the coolest part about the combat is the various manipulation options that you can set. For example, some passive effects of your skills will only activate when you're reaching a certain condition like burn, stun, and sometimes this can only be pulled off efficiently when you're using specific characters to synergize with. The way you can combo all of these passive effects to create massive damage are insane. Hell, you can even manipulate your AP or battle turn when you're already reaching a certain skill on your characters or equipment. It kind of reminds you on how the Trails games works or Honkai Star Rails, but here you can set up the defensive maneuvers as well. Speaking of passive effects manipulation, well, actually, your passive effects not only come from your character's skills alone. There are other aspects that can influence your passive effects as well, and those are your weapons, pictos, and lumina points. The weapon parts are pretty straightforward. Each weapon can be leveled up, and when you're hitting a certain threshold, you will get a passive effect, with each weapon has its own set of effects. As for Pictos and Lumina Points, these parts can be a little bit overwhelming if you don't understand. Pictos is basically a weird energy sphere that you can equip, and your characters can equip 3 of those at a time. These Pictos work similarly to accessories in most RPGs. However, when you equip it long enough in combat, the passive effects in these Pictos can be learned permanently, which means you can actually use the same passive effects without equipping the Pictos itself. How does that work, you ask? By using Lumina Points. After learning all of these passive effects, you can activate them for each character using the capacity of your Lumina Points. The more upgrade on your Lumina Points means that you can activate more passive effects, which basically makes your character stronger. When hitting a certain part of the story, you will eventually introduce to a person that can help you upgrade your Lumina Points and weapons, so make sure to use his service, or once again, you will be a gaming journalist in the future. Now you get the drill: equipping Pictos, learn passive effects, equipping another Pictos, and then utilize those passives with Lumina Points. It's quite simple. However, just like Souls-like games, this game literally has its own Estus Flask called Chroma Elixir. You can use this Chroma to fully heal all of your party members outside of battle, whether in the dungeon areas or in the overworld map. Gradually, you will also upgrade it by finding the Chroma fragments, so the number of heals that you can perform also increases the further you are in the game. As for the healing items when you're in combat, there's only 3 items that you can use. They are Healing Potion, Revive, and AP Potion. There's only a specific amount of them that you can use in each battle, with them being refreshed after battle as well. You can also increase the potency of this potion by using a specific shard that you will find in the game and use it through the upgrade NPC. Now, how about the skill tree? Well, it is actually pretty simple. Each character has their own skill sets and skill tree formation, and you have to follow the specific line to unlock certain skills. As expected, you have to gather the skill points by leveling up, so make sure you use those points effectively. Speaking of leveling up, you can also distribute attribute points to your character. There are 5 attributes that you can choose: Vitality, Might, Agility, Defense, and Luck. Normally, there's a default stat changes when you distribute these points, and one attribute only increases one stat. However, your weapons can tweak these numbers to give more advantage on specific attributes. Let's say you have weapons that indicate B on Vitality and C on Might. When you equip it, every time you distribute points to those attributes, you will not only get more health and attack damage compared to a weapon that doesn't support those attributes, but also increases another stat as well. C grade usually increases 2 stats, while B grade increases 3 stats. These systems almost work similarly to any Souls games, so maybe this is actually Souls-like but in turn-based. But Joe, what if we fucked it up? Well, don't worry, since you can use item called Recode to reset your skills and attributes. But this item is not necessarily cheap in the early game, so keep that in mind. Now let's talk about some random parts about this game that I also love. First is the enemy variation. There are lots of unique encounters in this game, like monsters with low health yet have stupidly ridiculous damage. There are monsters that constantly raising up shields, flying monsters that seems can only be damaged by a mechanic, and there are even monsters that utilizing one-shot mechanics if you fail to hit the DPS check. There are also some duels combat that provide a much more mechanical focus on how you approach the battle, and believe it or not, each enemies have their own attack pattern, so you will need to learn and adapt with their movements all the time. And what also makes these battles fantastic is the combat animations. I'm serious, the animations in this combat are so fucking good. Whether it's the choreography, the particle effects, the sound effects, or the camera works, all of them are absolutely stunning. It is also why I never feel bored with each battle, because looking at these combat spectacles feels so satisfying. The graphics and the world aesthetics are also beautiful. There are various unique landscapes that you will explore, and each of these places offer their own unique aesthetics, atmospheres, and soundtracks. As for the story, well, I don't want to talk too much about it since I don't want to spoiler anything, but I will say it is incredibly well paced with good amount of effective plot twists, and there are no characters that feels off or awkward. It makes every last one of them mean something to me, even the villain. The exploration part is also pretty decent. When you're in the overworld mode, you can venture to various areas on the world map, and with the help of your mount, you can access the sea areas, isolated spot, or even flying ground. The concept works similarly to overworld section in most JRPGs, like Tales or classic Final Fantasy series. At first, I thought there won't be that much of areas to explore, but turns out there's plenty of them that you can visit, and some of them provides hidden treasures, hidden quests, or even funny event like platforming section. As for the bad part, I haven't had much of it actually, but there are some annoyances that I hope can be a good evaluation. First, there are no manual save. I think it's a little bit annoying that you can't save before the hard encounters, which fortunately it's not a disaster, since the autosave are pretty frequent and placed in a good moment. And when you are in the overworld mode, you can solve this problem by using the campsite right before the hard fights, which will force an autosave system. However, I still wish they implement it because it just sucks to keep doing these minor walks just to retry a fight. Second problem is there are no minimaps. When you are in overworld, you have maps that indicate the area that you can explore. However, once you enter the area or the dungeon, whatever you want to call it, you basically have to move based on your memory or intuition. I get it, they probably thinking this is to maximize the immersion effect of the game, which at times I believe it works perfectly, but there are some places that just a little bit confusing to navigate without the minimap. So I hope they can design the map to be less complicated or maybe just add the minimap feature. Other than those two, I think I don't have any problems with the game. The performance is great, I'm playing with 1440p resolution and there are no stutters, input lag or weird artifact in the graphics. Although I have to say that the moving animation in the exploration or cutscenes can be a little bit weird at times. I'm pretty sure most of you will notice that the walking animations are pretty off and honestly some face expressions can feel soulless at times. But this is probably just a budget issue so I can tolerate it since this is not a big company to begin with, so I just hope they will improve it in the next game. Well, I think that's about it, and here's my verdicts for each important aspects of the game. Honestly, if you love JRPGs or turn-based RPGs in general, I highly recommend you to play this game. Especially if you don't like the pacing and cheesiness of most JRPG writing nowadays, but at the same time dislike the annoying complexity of most Western turn-based RPGs. I even will go as far as this is probably the best game for newcomers to venture to the genre, as the combat is more active and the game doesn't bloat it with too many informations, which is great for short attention span Andies that love action RPGs. Alright boys, I think that's it for today and I will see you in another episode of Joel RPG Reviews. Peace!